Hello, this is RD, rdauditors.com. So basically just wanted to talk about what's happening within the Ethereum ecosystem. Ethereum's one of the largest, or probably the largest blockchain in the space. Just phenomenal growth that they've had since inception. Incredible founder in Vitalik Buterin. So he basically made a tweet today, today, and they are taking a different path in the future in terms of really achieving the long-term aspirations of becoming the go-to place for finance, essentially. So there's been a lot of discussions, as he's mentioned, regarding the ongoing role of L2s in the Ethereum ecosystem. Yes. And he basically mentions that L2's progress to stage has been far slower and more difficult than originally expected. L1 itself is scaling, fees are very low, and gas limits are projected to increase greatly in 2026. So obviously L2s have really scaled. There's been so many various blockchains that's really sprouted up due to the layer 2, so utilizing the security of the base layer of Ethereum, and then scaling from the L2 aspect. But what he's actually mentioning now is that both of these facts, for their own separate reasons, mean that the original vision of L2s and their role of Ethereum no longer makes sense. So he's saying it doesn't really make sense. The vision of what they want to achieve has not really taken them to that destination. And these are something that one has to really take into consideration, right? So if you look at scaling Ethereum 1, scaling 2, and ultimately, as I said, day one is building a global sensor resistance permissionless blockchain. And then as mentioned, over the last 10 years, Ethereum has more or less evolved another property where it involves innovation in cryptography and economics, right? And I think the core structure and the core ethos is in terms of really the aspects of Ethereum scaling vision, right? So how you can be able to build up a roll-up centric Ethereum roadmap utilizing L2 rollups. Now, the roll-up centric basically is, really acts as the secure settlement and data availability layer. Yes, for hundreds of ZK rollups and optimistic rollups. And then you have essentially the surge, which is basically like the 100K T plus, which is 100K transactions per second, which ultimately was the goal to really massively scale the throughput across the L2s. So that was the ultimate aim, and then really to push in a few years to achieve that 10 million TPS on L2s. And then when you add to that is really the L1 enhancement, so really pushing the L1 gas. Data availability was really, really important, interoperability and decentralization. So that was more or less the core ethos and structure. So he's saying really that that's not really coming to head. It doesn't make sense moving forward. And basically what they believe is what he said, what would I do today if I was an L2? He's basically mentioned if you're an L2, such as Optimism, Arbitrum, many L2s out there. He's basically stating that examples of non-EVM specialized features, VMs around privacy. He also mentions the aspect of ultra low latency and other. So he's providing some advice, recommendations as an L2, where to steer. So he's not just leaving them as a standalone and saying, okay, thanks very much, didn't quite work, go on your own. He's just saying, this is what I would definitely advocate moving forward. From the Ethereum's perspective, he's basically just saying that he's become more convinced of the value of the native rollup precompile, right? And particularly once we have enshrined ZK EVM proofs that we need anyway to scale layer 1. This is a precompile that verifies the ZK EVM proof, and it's part of Ethereum. So he believes that the ultimate aim long term, really, and something that he's really digested and spent some time in introspection, is that really the future ultimately is really focused on the native rollup precompile. So if you look at a precompile, is essentially it's that breakdown where Rollup introduces more or less like a revolutionary Ethereum scaling model, right? And this was with the EIP 8079 that came out. and the precompile, where it precompiles directly to integrate layer 2 state transition verification into the layer 1, right? So this essentially will enable ZK based verification, replacing custom L2 proofs, and basically boosting security and allowing L2s to automatically inherit future EVM upgrades. So this gives a breakdown. I will actually add this in the description. It gives you quite interesting information regarding the native rollups, what that includes, the key benefits, and the future. So development of future proposers such as like researchers Justin Drake, Luca Donna are basically have a strong interest from teams like Base, Optimism. So, this is really providing something extremely interesting in terms of long-term direction. And he mentions that the native rollup precompile would make full Security Council free EVM verification accessible. We should spend more time working out how to design it in such a way that if your L2s is EVM plus other stuff. So that's what I mentioned, just in terms of the security aspect would be really, really important. And this, with the rollup precompile, actually boosts the security, right? Replacing the custom L2 proofs, boosting security, and also providing the L2s to essentially automatically inherit future EVM progress. So he's provided some details regarding synchronous composability. He's added the links here. I will put this into the description. And also what he's done is he's given a breakdown of combining the pre-confirmations with based rollups for synchronization composability. And this gives quite a clear definition of the design metrics where you can utilize the sequence rollup blocks required for the sequencer, move that over to the valid sequencer certificate for L1 slot and L1 parent based on the block, includes the hash generation of the block 99 first sequence block. So this is really scaling to an area where the end destination seems quite, to a point where it improves the composability between the rollups, right? As we mentioned, by standardizing the L2, it enables like the L2 state transitions to be processed within like L1, allowing validators to directly verify to like L2 execution. So I think this is quite an interesting move that they're taking. And then now we'll be seeing what the next steps, how people within the community, such as ours, how everyone can come together and find ways that we can actually start building with a long-term direction. So phenomenal move. It takes a smart, critical thinking individual that sees a long-term direction of what wants to achieve with Ethereum, and then now working backwards to now start say okay, this is what we want to achieve. Now, how can we then start building the blocks to be able to achieve and work towards this direction? So phenomenal opportunities that we have. Put all of the numbers to the side, irrespective of what Ethereum is doing in terms of price. This is about the future of what the ethos, the template, the mandate of Ethereum and what they want to achieve. So I think phenomenal opportunities. I will add this in the description. And if you like this type of information, cybersecurity, Web3 security, talking about these various things, please like, subscribe, and follow. If you need any security audits with Ethereum, L2, reach out to us, EVM, let us know. And any penetration testing, security audits, we're here for you. So have a fantastic start to the day or end to the day. Enjoy. Bye-bye.